Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Getting ready for a very early Tuesday morning over here. Got a good night of sleep last night. Feeling a lot better than yesterday. Holy shit, man. I don't know how the fuck I made it through that one. But there's plenty to talk about on all major markets today. Bitcoin included, of course. And the big focus is actually going to be on traditional markets today as, well, they kind of set the tone for just about everything else. But fear not, my cryptocurrency crypto cultists. But it's actually probably more or less a good thing, which we'll get into in just a second here. Other than that, I would like to wish you the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest, because why the fuck not, man? And it's actually way look all you need to do is look at Twitter in order to know why that's important in today's day and age. Anyways, let's go look at the Krown Trading application, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net. And I repeat that every fucking day, so you already know, and it's free. Anyways, looking at the open interest, it actually has been more or less steady from yesterday to today. Mostly the big important thing there is that over the weekend we saw it get all the way up to almost just under 2.7 billion, now coming down alongside price action from that 12,100-ish tick to where we are right now, essentially, while open interest comes down as well, which is more or less steady, and essentially suggesting that the reason why that price action was happening is not necessarily shorts being piled on, but more or less longs taking profit over the weekend, causing a nice dump, and now Bitcoin coming back into parity as it tries to set another base, which was our main disposition yesterday. I also want to follow up on yesterday's short and medium term analysis. We did hit the top side of the range. We did not hit the bottom side of the range at 10.8, 10.9, but we did find the top side of the medium term range at 10.5, and now that's going to, well, doesn't really change anything there, just kind of oscillating within a nice little range. So option traders, I imagine, are more or less happy. And looking at the Bitcoin dominance, pretty much steady from yesterday to today as well. So Bitcoin putting in a base here does benefit alts versus Satoshis, and also when we look across most altcoins, they're rallying versus the dollars quite healthily as well. So we are seeing kind of the same interplay that we actually saw, around 2016, 2017, end of 2017. Where when Bitcoin did range, it actually was quite nice for the alts. So that is overall health in the general market, and we do see that the fear and greed index is actually pretty much the exact same from yesterday to today as well. So I think it's time to go into actual price action, which I want to start off the day with NAS futures. And NAS has closed on a new all-time high here, making new all-time highs yesterday as well, as we said was likely coming into this week. And I'd essentially be looking for another continuation drive here. Could it come back down first to 10,950-ish region and put in a nice wick there? Perhaps yes, but overall I'm looking for more upside here, as we have built in, and what essentially we're looking for Bitcoin to do, built in a nice base above 10.5, between 10.5 and 11,000, now breaking out alongside yesterday's daily total closure. All momentum oscillators are looking good here. We do see that daily Stokes have rejected the bearish control zone, now getting officially back into the bullish control zone, which they stayed for quite literally all the way from April of this year to just in the middle of July, then spent a couple weeks coming down here, resetting, essentially now popping back up into that region. So I will look at that as overall good alongside daily RSI, looking like it's putting in a nice little consolidation, a little bit more flaggy, which YouTube algo, I said flaggy. Okay, let's be very direct with what we're saying here. And while I don't necessarily think that you can make measure moves on oscillators, I do think that this sort of formation typically will be indicative of of an upside bias, especially if we can get this next tick back into the bullish control zone alongside dragging the exponential above there. Obviously, that's going to take some time, but as we progress through this week, that's essentially what I'm looking for to denote another melt up, essentially. And we kind of already, I think price action's already essentially done that, and this is one of those times where price action is telling you a little bit sooner. So as always, price action matters most, as that's what your P&L is based off of. Assuming that it is, for myself it is, and this would actually drive a target, would imply a target towards, my thingy's in the way over there. Hold on, let me pull it out. Shit, now I don't have my target. Let's see, it would be somewhere around, Well, fuck it. I can't actually see that. That's rather annoying. About 11,250 if my eyes are serving me correctly. Somewhere around 11,250 to 11,300 ish region. So I do believe that we are going to be in a little bit of of the next melt up phase, also exceeding the 1.414 fib extension right here from the last major move on this cycle, going all the way from Jesus Christ. I mean, going back from February's to March dump to where we are right now on top of that macro breakout, making new all-time highs. So all of those things working together with each other. And I do think that we have another drive higher here alongside what was the other one that I'm looking at? Actually, before we get into that, let's go over here and look at it from a Challenger band perspective. Looks to me like it does want to start to trend to the upside as well, using the 20 simple to bounce off of rather aggressively, and even closing, I believe, just a ball sack hair above the top Challenger band, which was 1132.75, and our closing price yesterday was 1153 1153 and a half. So yes, it actually did close above there. So yeah, like I said, is there another retest back down to like 10,950 or 10,975 first? Maybe yes, perhaps in the cards, but overall, I'm looking for continuation to the upside here. This looks more or less good, and after putting a nice little base all the way from beginning of July to where we are right now and beginning of August, I do think that this one is ready for another leg, or at least it's very likely to try here. So with that in mind, let's go check out E-mini Future versus SPY. We want to see these things moving together, and I have a really great tool for this. Well, not I have a really great tool for this, but there is a phenomenal tool for this that we use in traditional markets called the McClellan Oscillator, Summation Index. The problem is that when I look at it on TradingView, it doesn't look right. So I've actually asked Bali to go check it out, and hopefully he can figure out why it doesn't necessarily look proper. But so we'll let the mad genius work, and hopefully come up with something maybe a little bit later this week. Looking at SPY futures as well, looks good to me. I mean, we've had this target up here towards 335, 336 region for a while now. Or sorry, I keep on saying 335. Is that actually right? 3335. So 3,335. Jesus Christ, man. I can barely fucking count. And this is my goddamn profession. This is just ridiculous. Anyways, yes, I still stick with this, and overall, I'm looking for this one to melt up for another leg as well. I would be looking for a quick pullback from that 3337. I'll just list out the numbers because saying it properly is doesn't work for my tongue for whatever reason. I'd be looking for a quick pullback from there, and then we'll come back and reanalyze it. But that would imply another drive up here as well. And from a momentum oscillator perspective, looking more or less healthy for another drive as well. We do see that daily Stokes are nice and erect here, and you can see that we've been really finding a lot of our local tops here on the daily alongside this trend line coming in right around the 96.32 area, which I do think is a nice area to be just to be aware of in general for this asset, as it does seem to be confirming that going all the way back. I mean, realistically, for the last 3 years, going back to October, only a few stints above there. So, does provide a little bit of different room, but also you will very likely notice if you're used to looking at Stokes on cryptos and Bitcoin especially, they operate differently than they do on traditional markets. Looking at daily RSI right here as well, looks more or less constructive. I do think that, we probably do pull back after testing the bullish control zone again, but overall spending time within here spending this much time within this region for the last couple months, another confirmed close into the bullish control zone would, again, very likely spurn off that next move. But to me, price action, first here, and overall price action says up, and we do see that historical volatility percentile is contracting during this whole time, which I think is rather enlightening as well. So you'll see that historical volatility percentile on the daily got extremely hot down here on the March lows, when all major markets were coming down extremely aggressively. Everyone was crying about not everyone was crying, that sounds facetious, but everyone was yelling about how this is going to be the next biggest financial collapse and everything. And realistically, I could understand why people would think that, like right around here. No, this was very clearly a runaway low. And now with historic volatility percentile cooling down during this whole run, it would suggest that this contraction phase is very much in line with that, confirming it over time as well. But that more importantly would suggest that we potentially have a lot more to go here, as even the moving average is above the historical volatility percentile right now. I would expect another spike up, at some point, maybe on this next drive. But overall, the long term is one major contraction phase, and if this is one major contraction phase, then that would suggest that this very likely does all come to the upside. So while there will be, pullbacks here and there and everything, I do think that traditional markets have have at least another leg here. And, depending upon how this, depending upon where that next one lands, then we'll kind of derive the next sort of targets. But for now, still sticking with that area. And that does bode well for all major markets, essentially, including Bitcoin, which is why I'm kind of starting off with this one as, or these two being Nasdaq and SPY, just because they do seem to set the tone. We do see major correlations on the macro level, not necessarily on the micro level, although that would be quite nice as well. Here and there it does come about, but overall it does set the tone. And with Bitcoin kind of floundering around above 11,300, I would say that my bias boner would be angled to the upside here, just based off of that. Now, looking at this right here, I do want to follow up on yesterday's short-term and medium-term analysis. We did not get the test down to 10.9 regionish again, so fair enough. But we did get the test to the top side of the medium-term range at about 11,500ish region. Looks like $14 just under there. So fair enough. I don't really have anything new to add on this that I haven't really said yesterday as far as this range goes. I still do think that with any sort of a 4-hour dildo closure, or sorry, actually no, there is something new to add on to this, because we do have yesterday's nice little swing high in here now. We can use this as a continuation point, and I do believe that it would be the same thing on the 2 hours. So let's go check it out. Yeah, it would be. So there's two ways to kind of denote continuation from, or sorry, not continuation, but a break of this range to the upside. Either a wick above yesterday's high at 11,486, spot 60 cents, which would very likely get it, although, of course, as always, closure is going to be better. And the other way would be a 2-hour or 4-hour dollar closure above about 11,420. Great number. And then I'd be deriving targets back up to 11,800 to 12,000 bucks. And I actually do think that that's likely where Bitcoin gets a try up to this week. The reason why I say that is because where's my Trojan bands again? Are they over here? Yeah, they're over here. The reason why I say that is because from a Trojan band perspective, which essentially is governing the long-term trend, we would actually need to close above that region, or sorry, if we close above 11,500 this week, then it would imply another retest of last week's high. And this has already been essentially confirmed on CMEs, which I put significantly more weight on. Now, we do have a rather big range here, which is why I do want to be defensive against any sort of a test back down to 10.8, 10.9. But we can now start to shore up those areas in a way which yesterday I was not so confident on. Today, with the last 24 hours of price action, I do think that we can start to talk about that a little bit more directly. So we'll get into that just after this. But for right now, the big thing here is what we confirmed last week. We did confirm CMEs closing a weekly dildo above the top 200 band for the first time since technically right on over here, although no opens and closures on this level. Realistically, it was 2019 run right here that led Bitcoin all the way up from about 5,000 to 14,000. So that would imply that we probably do get another retest of last week's high. And at that point, is it gonna have a chance to break? Well, it doesn't. What's more important there is going to be this week's closure. If it closes anywhere above 11,500 on spot price action on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, it would imply that we're in the process of actually just beginning the weekly trend, which is very interesting to myself, because anytime that we've seen a weekly dildo closure on the above the top 200 bands for Bitcoin, that's been your long-term bull markets. For example, going back here from April 2019 to the high at 14,000, almost about a 2,200% run, and this was at a time, if you recall, during this time, everyone was looking at this as like a bearish retest of the 2018 downward sloping resistance. No, the big area was the 4,000ish level, which is where we started to get bullish on this one. And everyone, looking at this region, right? I shouldn't say everyone. Like, obviously, it wasn't fucking everyone. That's a very silly thing to say. But a lot of people were looking at this as the next major high before a drive lower. No. The implications from even just this very pretty straightforward perspective was a break above the median Bollinger Band plus a retest of the top Bollinger Band, closing above, then leading up to a series of open and closes above, and then, well, massive moves to the upside, very similar to what we saw in 2014, 2015, right on over here, leading Bitcoin out from the last bear market, where, what do you know, Bitcoin gets that, it actually gets closure above right here, but no opens and closures, and then just kind of oscillates nice to and fro from the top 200 band to the median band right here, which is just a 20 moving average. So this obviously works, going all the way back to the Genesis, essentially, even back to 2012, actually. And all these runs are very impressive right here. Anytime that Bitcoin essentially closes above the top 200 band, I know this doesn't look like much, but that is a 166% run right there. This one in comparison is a 1,650% run to the upside. Once again, this one over here is a 700% run to the upside. And then, depending upon how you kind of mark this one, which technically speaking, you should be looking at it as every oscillation between the top 200 band and then the retest of the median band is its own cycle. But realistically, it did set the tone for what was a little bit over a 60 or almost a 6,300% run to the upside. And then more recently, we already looked at this one, about a 200% run to the upside. So, obviously the results may vary, and we have a very wide berth of what's it called, results there over the history of Bitcoin since the Genesis. But it still would kind of set the tone, and more importantly, because we actually just got our first closure outside the top 200 band right here as of last week, would imply that we're looking at something greater right now. And while I do think that Bitcoin can trade a little bit more sideways within our current range, overall, that's my disposition as long as Bitcoin's above, especially 10.8 to 10.9. Now, remember yesterday where I was saying the medium-term range to the downside would be denoted by 10.8 and 10.9 liquid zone right here. And then I'd really look at that as like a warning signal, and then the major signal was below 10.5. I do believe that now, since we've seen, what all major markets are doing right now, that this level right here can now actually act as more of a long-term level. As long as Bitcoin's above 10.8, 10.9, I think more or less healthy. That means that does imply that we could actually have tests back down around there, and I would be defensive against that. I really don't have a strong opinion whether Bitcoin tests back down around there or not in the near future. But my strong opinion is on this level. As long as if Bitcoin were to break it, even on a 4-hour delta closure, I think that would be a little bit too preemptive for myself, but probably does get it right. I'd still maybe wait for like a 12-hour, but overall, if that area were to break on one of those time frames, I would not just look for a move to 10.5, although I do think that there will be a bounce there. I would be looking for a move all the way down here towards this liquid zone at about 9,800 to 10,000-ish region. So $1,000 move is very likely what I'd be looking for there, which is very tradable. And then at that point, we could maybe even come back and say, all right, is this just one macro washout before getting ready for major moves to the downside? Maybe targets to the low 8,000s, upper 7,000s. Yes, that would be in the cards, but I want to be very direct in saying this. While I am outlaying all the criteria for looking for downside resolutions, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily biased towards that right now. I'm not. As long as Bitcoin's above 10.8, I'm actually not looking for that to happen. I look at all of this as sideways price action right here as constructive, and likely leading for another test to the upside. However, even for the medium term range to the upside, that is still more or less the same right here at about 11.5 on a wick. Or what's really funny is, like, when I read the comments sometimes, for whatever reason, people think that wick is spelled wig. It's not a fucking wig. Hey man, not a wig. It's a fucking wick. Jesus Christ. Where do people get these ideas? I don't know. Maybe they're just trolling. Who knows? And I'm not the goddamn word police, so I don't even know why I should be concerned with that. I just feel like a fucking moron even talking about it. Sorry. All right. You know what? It's probably my problem, not yours. But yeah, it's a wick, not wig, unless if there's some sort of new terminology that I'm just not aware of. But as far as I know, these price actions don't even have hair to begin with. probably why they need wicks. Anyways, talking a whole lot of shit today, huh? So yes, the medium term range to the upside, I think is still more or less steady, but because we do have that wick high at just under 11,500, I do think that that could be used as a continuation point, very likely deriving another target back up to this topside liquid zone. And looking at all major markets, which are essentially looking in some fractal way of this, which I really fucking hate that term, but it does accurately describe this right now. It would suggest that we probably do, drive through that area and make new highs on this run overall. And again, putting the puzzle pieces together from what we looked at on CME's weekly with regards to the Challenger band plus our momentum oscillators, or have we looked at that just yet? I don't think that we have just looked at that, or that we have looked at that just yet. Let's go over here to the 12-hour. 12-hour has confirmed hidden bullish divergence between this point going all the way back to 23rd of July, which, by the way, that was actually all the way here. That was all the way here at about 9,500. So that does obviously also include this last traded low last closing low at just above 10,900-ish region. That is in the cards, and I would be looking for another pop back up into the bullish control zone and probably test around the exponential, which could that give it enough juice to actually take out that medium term area to the upside? Possibly, yes, but I would still wait for confirmations there. And we've also seen a little bit of a reset on 12-hour Stokes, which, by the way, have been building up a trend line, something like this. Now, I do understand that, the way that I've always understood trend lines on Stokes in comparison to, on price action or RSI or other oscillators, for example, work more so as a regression. So I'd actually be looking for this to get a little bit more, a little bit more even here, but probably front run it at the same time. It just seems to be par for the course on Bitcoin. Just something that we've noticed over the last couple of years. So I would be looking for it to come down, maybe another couple ticks, but you'll notice that this trend line would be coming in around the edge of the bearish control zone, which if it does reject from there, or even just slightly above there, anywhere between like 45 and 50, I would be looking at that as a nice, as whatever that price action is, as likely to form another local low, and then play out that hidden bullish divergence right on over here. So again, putting a bunch of different pieces together, and remember that Stokes are more so speaking towards the ranging price action, RSI is more so speaking towards the trend for that time frame, so to speak. So again, putting those pieces together alongside the trending indicators for CMEs that we see, do I think that is going to break to the upside here? Probably yes. We'll look at probability. Actually, you know what? Let's look at probabilities early today. I'm curious what they say, because we did actually see the downside probabilities greater than the upside probabilities, I believe, yesterday, if my memory serves me correctly. But like I said, the more that Bitcoin goes sideways here, the more it will naturally start to favor the upside. And just looking at the areas that we have from yesterday, we can actually already see that 10.38% probability of foreclosure above actually 11,850. So that would be not even just the medium term range. That'd actually be the bottom side of the macro liquid zone right here. That would be pretty damn impressive. It would also imply that we would have a new closing high as well, or at least a chance to close above our last closing highs on this run. And for the downside, I did use 10,500. I don't think that that's appropriate. I do think that 10.8, we'll actually do 10.850 to give it a little bit more conservativeness there. But even, okay, looks a lot more interesting there, huh? So the difference between 10.5 and 10.850, massively different. So it is very important to denote that. So yesterday's price action was actually rather significant. However, a closure below there, again, would very likely drive a target, probably at the very least down to 10,000 with a bounce at 10.5, and then we'll speak about continuation targets after that if it does happen. I'd want to see it in real time first before judging the next sort of set. But looking at this, actually, ball is still kind of in the bear's court. So again, more sideways here very likely does benefit the Boulas, and we do see that the rings on this are starting to lose their downward slope for today. They're going to have a chance to actually reverse them back up and get a positive slope. And if we look at the 12-hour, we should see some sort of a advanced warning of this. And what do you know? We do see that actually. We said that the rings are starting to slowly get a positive slope, but again, it's the same sort of interplay here with the actual probabilities themselves. Now, I would like to look at the future for this because it should actually naturally get the slopes a little bit better, and they're more or less the same on the 12 hour and perhaps more or less the same on the daily as well. A little bit more angled towards the upside on the daily by a few pixels, I suppose. So yeah, overall, I do think that we, a little bit more sideways here as long as it's above 10.8, 10.9 is fine. But looking at all major markets, all major indices across the world, it would suggest that if anything's gonna have a chance to rally, it probably does it now, or within these next few weeks. But looking at the probabilities for the 12 hour, we actually do see. Hold on, let's go back to current here. I want to get a good bird's eye view on this one. Yeah, just under 5% for the upside target probability versus 13.77% for the downside. Now remember, 11.850 is only relevant. Is relevant for the long term and macro at this point. I would be looking at 10.500 as a nice resolution point for the medium term upside, insinuating a test towards that 11.850 to $12,000 target. So if we actually use 11,500, which doesn't have the same implications as 10.850 to the downside, to be fair, and I want to be very direct in saying that because that is rather important to speak about, it would show a higher probability on this next 12-hour delta closure, 23.5% versus 13.77, and then imagine the same thing on the daily as well is going to be much more in the favor of the Bullahs here. Yeah, 28.66% to the upside resolution versus 21.5% to the downside resolution. So it is looking more medium term in favor of the Bullahs right now, but because we do have a nice median for this range, I actually do think that this is rather tradable here. And I would say that any sort of a 2-hour delta closure below whatever the median that we had is for that we had for yesterday, 11,200, I would look for another test back down to like 10.9-ish region. But again, that does not imply that we'll actually break this. It just implies that we'll test it, and then we get to play the fun game of, is it broken or not? Oh, it's everyone's favorite game. Every Bullah and Barrow's favorite game. But a trader's favorite game is ranges as far as I'm concerned, but everyone has different styles, I suppose. Okay, all right, so now that we're here on the 4-hour, let's look at momentum, let's look at momentum oscillators. 4-hour Stokes are angled to the upside here. However, they do look a little bit weak, a little bit anemic. So let's check out what price action would need to close above in order to maintain momentum to the upside. It's actually 11,200. So I do like that area. I really do like that area for a very short-term move, now delineated between the short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Short-term below 11,200 on a 2-hour, 4-hour delta closure. Yes, I would look for another test back down to the bottom side liquid zone at 10.8, 10.9 region. Anywhere there's fine. But for right now, Bitcoin does seem to be trying to put in a higher low here. And I do believe that if we close this next 4-hour dildo above 11,200, which still has another 2 hours and 33 minutes and 18 seconds left to go, if it does close above there, then could it set in a higher low here? Yeah, could be doing that. But still, continuation points are actually more or less the same, so it doesn't really help, like from a trader's perspective, all that much. And like I said, I do think that it's relevant to be defensive against another test back down towards this area right here. Let's see, how's the 3-hour shaping up? Could help maybe formulate a little bit of a bias here. Actually showing a little bit more support in favor of the upside once again. 11,150 would be the magical number for keeping the 3-hour Stokes maintaining momentum to the upside. And by the way, we do still have we see kind of a nice regression here as well. For the last that's been working for the last, how long has this been working for the last couple weeks, or 3 weeks actually, going back to middle of July. Getting a lot of the lows for this run. Funnily enough, the 3-hour Stokes starting to once again take an interesting meaning that we saw kind of more so in 2018 and beginning of 2019. But we do see this actually catching a lot of good short-term lows here. Yeah, this one coming out at this price point right here, and then more recently on this one, and all of them higher lows at the same time. So I do like that. So again, price levels matter most to me, but looking across all these different momentum oscillators, it does start to shore up that bias a little bit more. Looking at the 2-hour Stokes, they are actually angled down right now, and we remain to the downside as long as we're closing below 11,437, which is very interesting because that's pretty much where our last closing high is on that time frame as well, which would essentially confirm resolution to the upside alongside of the medium term range. alongside turning momentum back up to the upside on the 2-hour as well. So, keep these numbers in mind because they do have greater implications, and the hourly actually showing 11,230 for keeping momentum to the upside from this time frame's perspective as well. Hourly RSI is inconsequential. I don't really have much to make off of this as well. Same thing with the bi-hourly, and same thing with the triple hourly. I don't have anything to make out of these guys for now. There is hidden bullish divergence present on basically all of these time frames. I believe up to that 12-hour that we spoke about yesterday. It's just, do we get another test back down essentially to the 21 on the 12-hour first or not? I don't have an opinion on this at all. My opinion is on the range 11.5 to the upside versus 10.8, 10.9 to the downside. With 10.8, 10.9 actually having a lot bigger implications. 11.5 implying that we test somewhere around 11,850 to 12,000-ish region. Looking at all major markets, it would seem that the upside's more likely here. And also when we go look at Mr. Buteral as well, which we'll pull up right now. Let me look at my long-term chart here. That's euro dollar. That's not the same thing as Mr. Buteral, although they look quite similar. We do have, I believe, new closing high. No, we don't have new closing highs coming in from the last 390 tick right here. We're gonna have a chance today, it looks like, but I'm curious what this is gonna look like on Trollender bands. Now, before we get into that, it should be noted though that daily RSI is problematic. I do think that we're gonna see a local top being put in here relatively soon. Bearish divergence is forming and will be very, very difficult to undo this one here. I mean, it got to a 90 tick. That's the highest RSI reading that we've seen since literally 2017, to put things in perspective. So maybe, maybe another closing high, which would imply another drive to the upside. But after that, I would be very hesitant on price action. I'd probably be looking for a greater pullback. Let's look at this now on, Jesus Christ, man. There's like workers and shit on top of my roof, and they're like stomping on it. So it's a little bit distracting. Hopefully you can't hear it because it's like really loud sometimes. And it's starting to scare the shit out of me too, especially since it starts at like 6:30 a.m. Let's go over here and check out the same thing. Where is it? There it is. Alrighty. So yeah, we do see the top Trollender band coming in right around about 411 region, which again, that's going to be kind of like the major area to watch for these next few days. If Mr. Buteral can close above there, I would be looking for new highs on this run, and we can judge targets from this perspective, which by the way, looking at the weekly right here, I do think that it's going to be doing, I mean, it's in the process of trending right now. I would be looking at this liquid zone right here, coming in from that last major breakdown. This is going to be a humongous area as far as the macro goes in this liquid zone. This is based off a weekly, so it'll naturally be rather large in comparison to the lower time frames, but something like this would be about right between 450 and 490. So a big range there, admittedly, but this is a weekly, so it does need to be taken into consideration, into context, of course. And it would imply that we probably do test up into that region somewhere around 490. I would also be looking for a pullback off that region as well. But as of right now, we are in the process of trending. We got our first open and closure above the top Trollender band confirmed last week. And it does seem like Mr. Buteral is leading Bitcoin right now, which may be being led by Link. Maybe another conversation for another video. But we can see that overall disposition here is to the upside. And from a momentum oscillator perspective, I do believe it's more or less the same on the weekly as well. We do see weekly RSI is getting nice and high up there. I actually would be looking for a pullback off that. Weekly Jewel does say hold your longs, or at least kind of giving you a soft hold your long signal right here. Not super perfect though, and certainly not very scientific, but the key things here already happened actually last week and were confirmed last week. We got new closing highs on the weekly above the last major swing high in June 2019. So that does denote a change in behavior from a weekly perspective. And we do see momentum oscillators actually following through to the upside as well. We're just getting into the critical zone right here. So I do think that there's going to be another melt up move towards that $490 or maybe $500 target over the next couple weeks. However long that takes, I'm not like too fussed about, but overall, that's what I'd be looking for here. And my sort of criteria for failure would actually just be very, 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 very simple, but using about 350 right here, the edge of the top side Bollinger Band as a as a nice management point. So 350 very much relevant for judging impending doom to the downside, at least for the medium and long term. But as long as that condition is not met, which by the way, this is pretty much where it tested over the weekend dump, and that's even 350 is even above the 10 simple, which is quite enlightening. This is a pretty damn strong move here. Would imply that probably does have another try to the upside alongside all major markets, and then I'd be looking for a nice top to be put in somewhere around the upper 400s, we'll call it. And then I'll let go of it from there. Again, this is being judged off of a weekly, so this can take some time, but as long as this one's above 350, just like Bitcoin above 10.8, 10.9, I'm generally looking up, with sideways being construed as constructive price action. Also, let's see. Let me just make sure that I'm recording. I am recording. That's really good, because this video is already 35 minutes fucking long. So there you go. There you go. Let's go check out a few more major markets here. Just kind of round out these biases. Triple Qs making new highs, new all-time highs yesterday, alongside new. just new all-time highs. Jesus Christ, man. Looks like continuation to me as well. Does it get another test back down to like 266, 267? Don't know, don't care. As long as it's closing dailies above that level, I'm looking for new all-time highs to be printed here. Let's take it off log scale and look at momentum oscillators as well. We do see that weekly RSI just got into the bullish control zone, actually retested it as well right here too. So I do quite like that, and I'd be looking for this to, well, I'd be looking at this for continuation. I'm sure a lot of people are crying bearish divergence. Nope, there's no high being confirmed here just yet. And it wouldn't even be able to confirm a local high here until at the very earliest Monday next week. But that's assuming that we don't get another. That's assuming that we just don't get continuation here on Friday, anyways. So a lot, a lot of variables as of right now. But my main disposition for now, at least, would be another, some more highs first before anything else. Looking at Microsoft, new all-time highs as well. Fucking surprise. Absolutely beautiful. Major runaway gap right here as well. This again is a professional gap as far as I'm concerned, and I'd be looking for this to continue on to new all-time highs as long as dailies are closing above 213.5. Could maybe manage this on an hourly as well. Yeah, probably could manage this on an hourly. Actually 213.25. So right in that same territory. I do like that level. But as long as we're living above there, I am looking for new all-time highs. Looking at Apple, they did have a 4-to-1 stock split. So this does kind of look a little bit odd here from what it should look like. This one does obviously look a little bit more toppy. And does have potential bearish divergence in play if it gets continuation to the downside today, which would be just taking out yesterday's low at 431.5, insinuating a target towards 425, and then I want to see it after that, because this would actually be quite nasty here, going all the way back towards 9th of June. Doesn't look super obvious, and because here's the problem when you have a stock split like this. I don't trust my indicators when that shit happens. Looking at everything else in the in major markets, it's looking up. So would Apple, who's kind of put the whole fucking market in his backpack alongside Microsoft and a few others, be likely to top out after that? Maybe. We are getting very red on historical volatility percentile. We are in the 90s or above the 90s, which is relevant, yes. So, the indicators actually would say that to be looking for a top relatively soon on this one. I would be skeptical as long as we're above about 425. But still, I just don't trust indicators when this sort of things happen. So I'd rather go by levels, and even going by levels is rather difficult here. I mean, 425 is an area of interest, and then 400 even is an area of interest. Going over to Tesla, I think that this is really important to cover as well, just because Tesla did lead a lot of this, what was one of the main players on the move to the upside, of course, right? That whole move from about 300 to 2,000 almost. But while everything else is looking constructive sideways or putting in nice rallies, this one is looking like it's putting a little bit of redistribution off that 1700 closing high right here. which is very important because if everything else is looking more or less healthy and more or less constructive, while Tesla is looking like it's putting in a major top, still it would imply that this one's done. And well, it doesn't look done on a weekly. It doesn't really look done on a weekly. Yeah, I just I would be bearish on this one as long as it's below 1530. I think that's rather obvious. Above 1530, I'd look for a retest of the $1650, $1,700 closing highs right here in this liquid zone, and yeah, I'd feel rather confident with that. Let's look at momentum oscillators. Does have hidden bullish divergence in play, so there is that. So there are there are some things helping it out right now, and if it does, if the rest of the market's anything to go off of, if it does want to rally here, it does have its chance. Even daily Stoch's about to turn back as well. But this level right here, absolutely critical. As long as it's below 1530, I would be looking at this as redistribution, and with the resolution point down below 1430, deriving targets to 1200 and then 1000 respectively, with bounces at those levels. If it can get back above 1530 and especially close even like an hourly above there, I believe, yeah, even an hourly close above like 15, I suppose 40 would work a little bit better. Then I would look for a retest of this area right here. But this one kind of trading sideways is I think a little bit more problematic for Tesla, and still looking at this as probably a major parabolic high. It really does call into question things when something is that was priorly parabolic is no longer rallying with the rest of the market, while everything else is fucking rallying, including the ones that were leading up that first run as well, which is your Microsofts and Apples, which are making new all-time highs right now. So I do look at this as a little bit of a leading indicator for the general market. How long does that take to play out? I don't know. Does that imply that we have another leg up here on the general market? I do think so. But I'd be looking for Tesla to initiate probably the big red flag for most major markets. The second that it breaks below 1400, I do think that would be relevant to be aware of. Of course, you want to trade the asset that's in front of you, and different assets do different things, of course, but in general the market moves together, and I would be looking at that as preemptively. I'd be looking at that as very important. Anyways, we already talked about triple Qs. We want to look at UKX. Good old Brits over here, putting in a nice low yesterday. I would look for this one to pop back up towards 6150 today. And momentum oscillators saying more or less the same thing. This is obviously does not look anywhere near as good as U.S. markets, but I do think that it has some upside in the coming days. Does that turn into the next local high somewhere around that 6150-ish region? Perhaps yes, but I want to see the rally first. This chart overall does not look healthy overall, but fair enough. For right now, I would be short-term and medium-term bullish up there. Let's look at Eurodollar. Eurodollar did hit our 119 target, I believe. Oh my God, just barely grazing it. Holy shit. I did not think that would get hit for like another month or two, but again, that's why I don't do time analysis. So we can now mark that one off. I don't really have strong opinions on this one right here. We hit all of our long-term targets like the last week, I guess. Jesus Christ, man. So now, again, sideways above 117.5 is more or less constructive, and I'd be looking for another test back up here. But after a nice move like this, I do think it's going to take some time to cool off. Remember that it is at monthly resistance, so I do think that it could put a few more spikes into this region. But actually, also think on the other hand that this area is a great area for another macro top. Would also be meeting up with the long-term trend line coming in right here. 200 exponential moving average on the monthly, obviously gonna get a lot of respect as well, as you can see. So likely does grind that area out a little bit, but as long as it's living below, I actually do kind of look at this as potentially the next macro top here. We don't see that from monthly RSI. I'd expect to see a hidden bearish divergence if that was the case. We actually don't see that. And monthly Stokes are actually just about to get into the bullish control zone next month. So it's going to be a long month for this one, but I'd more or less be looking for a range in activity, and I don't think that we'll be speaking about it much until September. But to kind of like wrap up my thoughts here, ranging activity between about 117.5 and 119. And then and hey, if it did close above 119.5, I would look for a retest of the 1.25 high right here. But I sincerely hope that doesn't happen because most of my money's in dollars. And I live in Europe, and it fucking sucks when this thing rallies, So fair enough. Anyways, I guess that's my problem, not yours, or hopefully it's not yours. Looking at gold, said new all-time highs coming into this month. We've got new all-time highs. I would suspect that we're going to get some more new all-time highs here. A little bit of bearish divergence forming as well. Could be problematic on the daily, but and likely does insinuate a target back down to 1950 at the very least. But overall, the next areas are rather difficult to get because we are in a blue sky breakout. It is more or less price discovery at this point. And the next target that I can get is not derived for anything else other than just a fib extension here at 1.272 at just over 2,000, which does make sense. Anytime that you get those psychological numbers, those big round even numbers like 2,000, usually things do exceed it a little bit and then come back down. If assuming that it does get met. So 1233 an area of interest right there. Going back down to the daily for now, I would be using the short-term and medium-term range to the downside. Yeah, 1950 actually working perfectly. If that area does break, I'd look for a move down to about 1890. But for right now, still in the process of trending as far as I'm concerned, and the monthly has a very wide range here. Overall, I would not mind a test back down to 1890 or even 1850 or 1825. I'd look at that as all opportunity. This is fucking girthy. This is as girthy as it gets right there. Jesus, man. I'd look at those as opportunities. It's just difficult when things are on a blue sky breakout because things float around, things get crazy. You can't really rely on indicators. Divergences will work on higher term timeframes. Fib extensions can work, yes. But I don't really have any like clear-cut way of doing it, except, one of the things that my mentor always said was, a stock making new all-time highs continues to make new all-time highs until it doesn't. And, that statement always used to piss me off. It's like, well, what the fuck? That sounds so self-evident. Like, how can that not be? And then he'd say, just watch. And it's like, okay, it makes sense. Trends continue is essentially what it comes to. And that's kind of how I've come to understand it over the years. Trends are likely to continue. Okay, what else do we want to check out while we're here? Maybe check out entropy, see how this one's moving around right now too. Okay, entropy's at a very interesting level here, as it is heading to like the bottom of the range of what we typically do see before major pivots on this. But randomness can come, and randomness will happen on an up move during parabolic moves. So this also does make me think that we probably have another try to the upside here. And then we're going to play out another like absolutely boring as fuck sideways consolidation for a little bit of time, assuming that the Bulas do maintain control here. So this next week of price action is going to be so damn important. But if we see price action move up while entropy also increases, I'll say something crazy right now because it's only the crypto nerds and myself, or sorry, the TA nerds and myself. The crypto nerds, they're long gone. All they need to hear is Bitcoin up. It's good, great, that's awesome. But essentially, what this would suggest is that if entropy is going up alongside price action also going up, and it's breaking a macro level, probably does enter into a little bit of a parabolic phase. I really dislike saying more intense stuff like that, but if you ever are going to have a parabolic time and there is any indicator that's relevant for that, it would be this, alongside historical volatility percentile, which by the way is increasing as well. This is the all-time HVP right here. So I'll give you an example right now. We'll go to this one right here. Okay. Oh, well, is that the best one, or is this there's a couple of really good examples right here. All right, we'll do this one though. We'll do this one. So Bitcoin was rallying out of the $7,000 base, December 2019, January 2020. More recently. So I think that this is more relevant for a lot of people. All during the time when entropy was dropping, putting in a nice base, putting in a nice, nice breakout right there. But then once Bitcoin really gets going, and that was from this run from about 8,000 to almost 11,000 right here, or I guess 10,500. Entropy was actually rising during that time. And that was just randomness up to that level before getting ready for the next big trending move to the downside. So to me, that does suggest that if we were to see entropy rise here as Bitcoin breaks a macro level, which over here, it didn't break a macro level, it broke a long-term level. And if you were around during that time, you probably remember it because it was something with regards to the monthly, I believe, at that price point at around like high 7,000s. It broke this area right here. Then it would imply a greater move. Yes. So looking back on my regular charts right here, I want to match that up with the historical volatility percentile, and yes, we do see that it is increasing right now, and more importantly, it's maintaining. It's living obviously well above the moving average on it, but it's also making highs above what we saw during this last contraction phase. So it would suggest that we have something new going on, something new is being created, and something new is being printed here as far as the macro goes, which I think is rather exciting. But again, levels matter more than anything. We're really getting into like very esoteric type concepts right now, which I do actually rather like, and this is really fun stuff for me to talk about, and perhaps it's even maybe for like the true fucking TA nerds out there, it's true, it could be interesting as well. But at the end of the day, do I trade solely based off that? Fuck no, I do not. I trade based off of more or less simple tools, and then these help kind of formulate a bias. So breaking it back down to Bitcoin here, I do think that it gets another try to the upside, just mainly in line with all major markets. If it does break below 11.2 on a 2-hour or 4-hour closure, I would look for another retest back down to like 10.9, we'll call it, give or take like $50. I don't have a strong opinion on that, but as long as we're above 10.8 to 10.9, this liquid zone right here, I look at sideways within this range between 11.5 and 10.8 as constructive, favoring the boo laws. That also does imply if Bitcoin does break below 10.8, I do think that very, very likely we will make our way back down towards 10,000 or a little bit below 10,000 down here with the bounce at 10.5 right here, very likely. So for right now, it's kind of, it's more or less boring right now, especially compared to like the last couple of weeks. But I do believe that the range is kind of setting in, and still with great focus on the 11,500ish region right here. A move above there, above yesterday's wick high, or just closure above yesterday's 4-hour closing high at 11,430 very likely does drive targets back up to this region right here. Don't have any patterns or anything like that to be looking at, but do have some hidden bullish evidence, which is present again all the way up to a 12-hour. I did forget to look at the daily and 2-day. We obviously looked at the daily, but forgot to look at the 2-day and 3-day is what I meant to say. And what do we see here? 2-day momentum oscillators are about to turn down, so that is a little bit problematic. Following that trend line governing our highs ever since February 2020, which was this baby right here. Connected with this guy right here before a big move down. Now keep in mind that does not necessarily mean that we're going to operate in like a new macro cycle. This one obviously did produce quite a nice move down from about 10,000 to 8,500, a $1,500 move, but it was reaccumulated, whereas this one right here did lead into a trending move to the downside, obviously all the way from 10,500 to 4,000, 5,000 bucks. So that's also making me think that we probably do see a little bit of sideways within this region, formulate a range, and that would be constructive for Bitcoin on the long term. Looking at the 3-day, I'm sure a lot of people are talking about this as a long-legged doji dildo. It is a long-legged doji dildo. However, I don't, and which is typically indicative of indecision and perhaps even reversal. But in order to get reversal, you need to have continuation, and continuation isn't had until we tick back below the low of this at $10,546.15. So it's got a nice range here. More importantly, the 3-day RSI looks a lot more healthy, getting into the bullish control zone for the first time in a while. And that leads me to maybe my last point, the last couple of points. There's a couple things here. We'll do it for the TA nerds, I suppose. Make this video a fucking hour, I guess. Looking at the weekly, we do have a higher long signal on Bitcoin Jewel, also balancing off the fib on that level as well. I like both those things for continuation. More importantly, I like the weekly RSI. The weekly RSI did confirm into the bullish control zone for the first time since April 2019. Very similar shit here. Extremely similar shit. We showed this yesterday, but I'll show it again. Bitcoin in beginning of 2019 puts in ascending triangle right here, very similar to our ascending triangle right here, breaks to the upside, gets that first major move to the top side, breaking above the Bollinger Bands as we saw at the beginning of this video, right? Which we can kind of see is happening right here. It's going to have a chance to happen. And then alongside that, weekly RSI just got into the bullish control zone for the first time, for the first tick since 2017, essentially, on April 29th, which was literally this area right here. Literally this fucking area right here. boom, massive move up, and glory times were had, for the next couple months. And then what do you know? Bitcoin's making it back in right and over here after being allergic to it for quite some time. And by the way, it broke below the bullish control zone in beginning of August, which was when he was putting in this high right here. So this can obviously be used going all the way back to the genesis as well. We do see on this whole run from 2016 to 2017 or 2018, I guess, the first major move was had by getting that first closure in the bullish control zone. Yes, it did oscillate to and fro between the neutral zone and the bullish control zone, but anytime that got into the bullish control zone, big nasty moves to the upside were happening, and it works back all the way to fucking, what is this, October 2013 and probably 2012 run as well, getting this first tick right here. And then that was this whole run from $115 to $1,000, so almost 1,000% increase. I mean, just crazy shit. So I do think that most things favor the boo laws here. At the end of the day, still a game of sport and resistance as far as I'm concerned, but some cool things to look across the board. I think that we've covered everything to death already, so I don't really need to repeat anything right now. And I would like to take another second to wish you the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest, man. I'm gonna be signing off now. Take care, and until next time.